All right. Good morning. This is Mr. Reed coming at you live from U203. Happy Friday. I'm going to do just a quick overview of our lesson for March 13th as we are moving on to the online platform. So today we're going to continue our conversation with Lyle Moore and the narrative perspective and how that impacts how, as an audience, we receive that text. So just a couple small things today. Primarily going to be focusing on some group work, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But our essential question today: how does narrational perspective shape our reader response? And then we're going to be looking at this through the use of synthesizing text, looking at motif, setting, and theme. All right. So to start, okay. So the first thing that I'm going to want you to do, this is an individual assignment, and you can find this on our Google Classroom, Google Doc page. Basically, what I would like you to do is go into the text and find be able to compose three questions and with an appropriate response for each one of those questions that relate to our essential question today, which again is how does narrational perspective shape our reader response? Just a quick reminder of that, not the short story we're reading a lot more by Leslie Tenario, a little bit more experimental in nature. We talked a little bit about how the main character is not actually the narrator, but the sister. And so the fact that we're seeing her storyline kind of play out through the perspective of somebody else, especially someone who's so young, the way we receive that information may differ, right? At the same time, we've been talking a lot about colonial mentality and expectation, appearance versus reality. When we start to engage with some of these larger colonial mentalities, we start seeing binaries like appearance versus reality, or oppressor versus the oppressed, freedom versus oppression. The first thing I'd like you to do is pull from the text. I'd like to discuss some specific examples about narration and perspective, and be able to look for examples within the text, find the page number, find the line number, and then use that basically as the starting point for your response. Okay. Obviously, we will not be sharing these out in class. I'll just be reading these and checking at these as a formative assessment, and that's that. Quickly about agency, character. When we talk about characterization, all characters in a short story or novel, they have different levels of agency. And what agency is the opportunity, the freedom, the ability to act on a character's intent, right? They are able to act on their own intentions. They have the free will to do what they would like to do. And so again, there are characters that have different levels of agency. So once you've figured out the different characters in our short story that we're reading, and we have an understanding of the different levels of opportunity that they have to be able to act on their specific actions, I want you to step back for a minute and think about, does it matter that these characters, this family that's moving from the Philippines to the United States, does it matter that they have the ability to act on their intentions, right? If they do have a lot of agency and they can do certain things, does it actually result in them being happy or being successful in the end? Or does it have some larger impacts, some larger consequences, some larger implications near the end of the story? If they don't have a lot of agency, does that really matter, right? So thinking from a larger structural point of view here, when we talk about things like conflict, right? We've been talking a lot about character versus character, character versus self, character versus fate, character versus society, right? Does agency actually matter? Okay. So this class, I have broken you guys down into your own particular groups. So I'll talk about that in a second. But what I would like you to do, the primary focus of today, once you have completed that little warm-up and then you've completed the reflection at the very end of the class, I'd like you to spend the majority of today's class working with your group to produce a Google Slide presentation that you will post to our Google Classroom and make sure that you are sharing this with everyone in the class. Instructions: divide the responsibility, record at least one slide per group member explaining an aspect of your concept using the QuickTime screencast, which is in the next couple of slides. After posting your presentation, I'd like you to go ahead and check out the other Google Slide presentations that are posted to Google Classroom. Take down some notes, collaborate with those members, because when we come back next week, we're going to continue working with these presentations and talking about these concepts. So what I would like you to do is groups 1 and 2 are going to be talking about motifs in the short story L'Amour, right? So we're identifying examples of motifs, talking a little bit about how motifs are important in the text and what maybe that tells us about some larger concepts, again, like perspective, or maybe it's narration, or maybe it's characterization. If you are in group 1 or group 2 for character and agency, right? Well, we've already talked a lot about dynamic and static characters, and I would also like you to talk a little bit about agency. Now, if you move to the next slide over here, okay. Agency. Find one quote per character. Who has the most agency in the novel? Who has the least? Why do you think that is? In your novel of study, does agency actually matter? And if it doesn't, why is that? If it does, what does that say about the character or society they are from? Right? So that might be the Philippines, culturally speaking, how they act, or maybe it's something about them moving to the United States. And as Filipinos, how has this new environment impacted their family unit or maybe the individuals themselves? Again, and the last group is going to be dealing with setting. All right, so this next slide here, which I took a pause to just realize what it was. Okay, so motifs. You're going to be looking for 2 to 3 different separate motifs. If you're a character and you're looking at agency, you're going to be looking for 2 to 3 different characters. Diversify and additionally explore new characters from our character sketches. All right. And finally, setting. So the goal is to explain the significance of each of our understanding of the text and supporting our claims with evidence from the text. And that should take you roughly about 25 minutes to do so. Right? Each group needs to find a minimum of 5 quotes that speak on motif, character, and agency, or setting. Okay. So my suggestion to you is, first off, if like you guys are all going to be looking for different examples of your particular literary device, so I would suggest, each person in the group go ahead and find one example of motif or one example of character and agency, and then obviously the setting itself. And you're going to be producing a Google slide on this and looking for examples in the text and pulling examples and using that as a basis for your argument. But in addition to composing this Google slide, I would like to see that you're able to enunciate and demonstrate your understanding and knowledge of the text, which means that I would like you to go ahead and do what I'm actually doing right now, which is producing a QuickTime screen recording. And all you really need to do there is just simply, watch the video. If you don't know how to do this, drag and basically fill up the page and talk for roughly about a minute to a minute and a half about one slide that you particularly focused on when you were constructing this presentation. Okay. And then once you have done that, you've recorded it, then I would like you to go ahead and upload to YouTube. And then go ahead and embed that YouTube video into your presentation. So each slide at the very end of this is going to have one student in each group talking about one particular aspect of their presentation. So everybody is going to be spending about a minute discussing one aspect of, again, if it's motif or character or setting. All right. The last thing I'd like you to go ahead and complete for me, this is going to be just for attendance purposes. It is due at the very end of this class at 12:35. If it's late, then I'm going to be marking it down as absent, okay? So it's important that you do get this in. But it's a very short assignment. So in addition to your assignment for composing these presentations as a group, and then also the warm-up activity, I would like you to go ahead and just write up a very short reflection about one of the following concepts that we're studying in Lattimore. Cultural representation, cultural transformation, narration and perspective, or agency. Okay, so you can do that, or you could submit a couple of questions to me that you would like for me to kind of go over in the next class or just discuss in a larger sphere. Or maybe another concept that you feel like you haven't quite fully grasped yet that you would like me to talk about. So again, make sure that you have submitted that to me for 12:35 tomorrow. All right. Again, if you have questions, feel free to email me, or if you'd like to set up a time during our class period, which takes place from 8 to 9:25, we can always meet for a Google Hangout. Okay, so that's that. Again, let me know if you have questions. Stay safe.